Right, hello everyone. This is series 1 of the rebuild Mark II for the OG bike that was the first rebuild on this channel, the first 5SL conversion that basically I can't even say blew up my channel. My channel's not blown up, but like it's what prompted me to start the YouTube channel, because when I went to do the conversion, obviously it was a fairly new thing, and there was just no information, very little information online about it at all, especially no videos. So I thought, well, screw it, I'll do it myself, and this was that bike. I've had it now for since early 2017, so yeah, 7 years I've had this bike for now. I bought it off eBay. Basically, the listing was an R6, basically a bit more stripped than it is now, and the rest of it in boxes, and just needs a carb setup. I fell for that trap. I admit it. I knew nothing about these bikes. All I knew, it was a childhood dream of mine to own one. So when I got my bike license, a red and white R6, old one, carb one, was the only one for me. Cut a long story short, bought it out of love. And very kindly, the guy actually fully assembled it to prove it had everything with it, because I was dubious. You know, when you buy things in boxes, you know, there's always bits missing, blah blah blah. I paid 700 quid for it, which is a bargain in today's market, as it appears to be. And then yeah, it was in one piece when I went and picked it up, but it did have the liner issue, and we fell down that rabbit hole. I'm a mechanic, long-standing mechanic. I've completed a few near impossible projects in my time with the cars and old Fords and things, so I just thought, well, it's a bike, bit of learning, bit of tinkering, I'm sure we can figure out something to do, and that's where the conversions come along. But now we're here, 7 years down the line. It's had multiple different engines in it. The engine I actually took out was not a converted engine, it was a 5EB engine. The reason it is engineless is because I don't tend to ride over the winter, and while my bike was sitting there doing nothing in the winter, I had a customer of mine basically blow his bike up. You know, got the whole cracked liners, which is this engine here, and he was using it as a daily. He was riding to work on it in all weathers. You know, he needed the bike. So I said, look mate, I'll sell you my engine. It's going to be a fairly slow process, but I'm going to try and make it as quick as possible, because I need to get out on this. So this is where the engine might be the only thing that major differs, because I was planning on doing a full restoration on this, to the point of where it's like, you know, brilliant condition. But I also want to get out there and have some fun, and, you know, get some wheelies up and all that sort of stuff this year. And I was just thinking, if I'm doing an absolutely immaculate mint bike that I spent a lot of time and money working on, and I'll do loop it or do something to drop it or whatever, I'm gonna be pissed off, and so what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to tear into this engine, see how bad it actually is. Because, like I say, with a new job, I've got access to boring machines and you know, head skimming and block skimming machines, and basically a full machine shop for engines. So if I ask my boss nicely enough, I'm hoping that I'll be able to, you know, make all this lovely and new with some new liners and this, that and the other. But I'm thinking, we've also got an alley welder there, so I'm thinking maybe the quicker option is just to do the conversion again. If I do that, then I will still build this engine into doing the liners. I've got another one down under the bench as well that I want to do liners on, for my wife's bike. So yeah, I may do a bit of porting and polishing. We'll see how we go with that. Yeah, so I suppose we just crack in with it. Oh, actually, just before we do, this is the bit I spoke about last time in the video announcing I'm coming back. Try to turn the camera around, John, why don't you just stare at my chest? Yeah, I've got the right colour. And this thing was on eBay for ages, because every time I looked for a white tail fairing for R6, this thing would come up, and it's probably on eBay for like a year, and it was like 150 quid, and I had it in my watch list, and I didn't really want to buy it because even at 150 quid, it's still got like a little bit of paint damage. Fair enough if it was mint and I didn't have to paint it, I'd probably bought it straight away, but I just didn't. It just, every time I searched for it, and every time I searched for them, there was that one, always there. Well over a year, and one day I was searching for them. That was like 50 quid. I couldn't really afford it at the time, but I was just like, buy before someone else does. Yeah, and got it. And that's including postage as well. It's like 55 quid with postage. It's got all its clips intact. Deals. All this is going to be in like separate videos, but like episodes, you know? So it's going to be a bit of an educational series. Because I found with my channel, the videos that do the best are the ones that are like how to do this, how to do that, like that clutch, how to fit clutch cover one. Like, I get comments on it all the time, views on it all the time. It's, you know, it goes strong. And the one for stripping an engine does. So hopefully this video will do quite well, because I'm stripping an engine. I might even put it in the title. But that being said, I've waffled on way too long now, so I imagine most of you have skipped on. If you haven't by now, then thanks very much for the loyalty. But we'll get cracking on with this now. Gonna get it stripped down. I'll explain little bits along the way, but I've got a video explaining all this. So I think we're just gonna get on with it, and you're just gonna kind of watch how I work in a way, rather than me doing it the proper way to, you know, explain to people that maybe try and do it for themselves that are not as experienced as someone like me. So yeah, let's get on with it. Right, so here we go. My tools are out on the bench because I currently don't have a toolbox at work, so I'm transporting essentials every day. It's quite annoying. I need to get a toolbox worked out. I can't be asked to take all this. So it looks like the first thing we're going to have to tackle is these manifold bolts. Now I don't think that I don't think they're going to come out very easily. Torch. Yeah, they're not coming out very easily. So I think the best thing to do before accepting fate and just cutting these off is, I think we're going to actually have a go on. I mean, I can see one that's just, oh no, now rub the rust off of it. It might. We'll give it a go, shall we? After all, I am meant to be a professional. Giving a quick wire brush up. Now I'm expecting to have to use some heat on these. It helps with being a mechanic to kind of try and think ahead a little bit. You know, judging by the state of these studs and past experiences you have with them, especially on bikes, this manifold's knackered as well. The flanges are rusted and rotten away. So we'll be definitely putting my manifold on it. It's a lot better condition than that. I want to try and find a sports one, you know, Aquapovic or something. So yeah, they've cleaned up alright actually. So what I was going back to saying about trying to think ahead a little bit. Now there's no point in me caning them with a load of WD-40 only to end up putting a load of heat into them, because one, you're going to burn the WD-40 off. There's also no point in heating something up and then spraying it with WD-40, because guess what, it instantly burns off. And I don't want to fill my garage up with smoke, WD-40 smoke. It's not particularly flammable, but it smokes a lot. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to give it a little tickle with some. Alright, just on the head, and also because we can see where the stud goes into the head, we'll just give it a little squirt on them too, because it's either, if it doesn't snap, it's either going to break free there at the nut or at the stud and the head. And to be honest, I'd prefer if it's a stud and the head, because if I'm going to be using this head, I want to restud it with stainless steel studs. So we're going to get these off, hopefully. Shall we see? Yeah, no. Right, so I found a block of wood. It's still not great, but my plan is to get better equipped. I want to build an engine stand that holds these properly. You know, I've had a lot of inspiration from the place that I work, because they race MX-5s. They're building the same stuff all the time, so they've made loads of stuff to make the job more convenient. And you know, it's really kind of inspired me to do the same. So I'm going to be doing that. So this is one of the last times I struggle. But as I say, I don't think any of these, I've just tried one lightly, but to be honest, the way it feels as solid as it, no, they're gonna snap. So I think my best chance of getting these undone is to give them a little bit of heat and go from there. This is what I mean. A bit of patience, a bit of heat, working back and forth. No WD-40 after the heat has been applied. We're getting a squeaky bolt, but it's now freed right off. This nut bolt is now no longer going to snap. You know, you can feel it in the spanner when it's going to snap or not. So we're currently in the middle of the time lapse at the moment. I have just paused the time lapse. But I thought I'd just record this on my phone to add in there and show you that, you know, this stud is knackered. We're going to have to take these studs out anyway, but these looked awful. They look like they've been down with the Titanic. After a wire brush up, a little tug and a pull here and there, a little bit of a knock, load of heat. If the heat isn't enough, you know, go in a little bit by little bit, because the heat stays in there. You know, even though it's cooling down, it's still hot. Like, you went to touch it, even though it's cooling down, if you went to touch it, you still burn yourself. So you go back on the heat, and it doesn't take as long to warm it up a little bit more. Right, and if that's still not good enough, then just try a little bit more. You know, you want it to get to that maximum of like a cherry. You don't really want to start seeing it turn white. If you start seeing it turn white, it's very close to becoming molten, and then it's not gonna snap. It's just gonna fold and flop, well, not flop away, but as soon as you've got your ratchet or spanner on it, you're just gonna peel it apart just like a Play-Doh. So but there you go. Now just 7 more to do. Yay! Right, so there we go. We have 8 successful stud removals, or nut removals should I say. All the studs are really good and intact, so I think I am going to keep them. None of them made any chance of, you know, wanting to budge or anything like that, even with that amount of heat, and none of them felt like they were ever going to snap, like, you know, no shearing force or anything. So I think I'm just going to leave them, clean them up and reuse them. You'll probably notice the yellow tape went on my spanner after the second stud. Reason being for that is because the spanner gets very hot on one end, and being a swan neck spanner, you want to make sure you grab the right end of it. So yeah, you'll lose your fingerprints if you don't. So we're going to get tidied up, clean up all this rust and crap out of the way, get you in a better position, and we're going to remove the head and check to see how bad the damage to the liners really is. So right, so as I say, Just going to take this head off. As I said earlier, I forgot my gun, so it's going to take a little bit longer. I may speed this up in the editing if I can figure it out, but if I can't, I'm just going to do it. Try and do it as quick as possible for you. Only takes me 10 minutes to get a head off anyway, but that is normally with a gun for the little odds and sods. I have already cracked these loose. If you are using a gun, crack them loose anyway first, especially Allen keys, because they will just strip out faster than you realise what you've done. So that being said, I'm just knocking out all these at the moment. I do have a spare tray. There's me just throwing them on the bench. It's very rare that I've got a spare tray. Some of these have got a washer on instead of the actual rubber part, so that was actually wrong. I'm surprised it wasn't leaking. Right, so rocker cover off. That reveals the timing gear, part of the timing gear. Then we need this bottom cover off. Right, we'll crack these off as we're here. No, we won't. They are tight. Let's get a proper Allen key on them. These shouldn't be that tight. I think these are about 8 to 10 Newton meters. Yeah, it should not be that tight. Right. Normally at this stage you would time the engine, but we're not going to today. I've explained to you before in previous videos, if you want to go and look back on the detailed engine strip down on one of these engines on a video that I do, I show you exactly where all the timing marks are, but for the sake of not moving the camera, I'm just going to say here we've got a little T for top dead center, a little mark on this. And when you do the conversions, you remove this plate, this trigger wheel, and you put it in the other engine, because the 5SL one is different because they're running an injection. And you want to line that up with where the crankcase joins, where the two crankcases join together, the main face. Got tiny little, you can just see where they join together, the little seam line, and that mark lines up with that. And then at that point, you've got E on the exhaust valve cam, and I on the inlet cam on the sprockets, on the pulleys, and they will point at the corresponding thing. So I for inlet pointing at the inlet, E for exhaust pointing at the exhaust. It's pretty self-explanatory. And you've got your tensioner here, manual adjusting. Some more for like race bikes and track day bikes and stuff like that, so we probably won't run this. To be honest, I've never ever had a problem with the standard Yamaha self-adjusting timing chain tensioner, so I probably won't run this. But basically what you got is you got a lock nut. You loosen that lock nut and you wind this in and out to push the plunger in and out, and at the optimum tension you'll just lock it off. But that's it now. That's the chain loose. So we're going to whip these 4mm and 8mm bolts out. Right, that's that off. So I have just checked the journals on the carrier and they all seem fine, but once you just get the cams out, don't worry about the chain. If it drops down you can easily retrieve it. Ideally keep the cams in order if you're not so sure, but I know the difference between the two, so it's fine. I explained the differences between the two in the other video as well, so we won't go into that. What you want to do is just check these journals quickly, just make sure there's no scoring and nastiness, which there doesn't appear to be. Quite nice. Yeah, I do believe this isn't going to be a bad engine. I'll be surprised if the crack is any more than minor. So it's just head bolts to remove now, and then head is off, and that is it. So let's get on with that. That's a big gap. I can literally see the piston ring between the, I'll show you in a minute if I can get the camera to see it, but there's a gap between the piston and the cylinder wall, and I can see the piston ring. No cracks there. I wonder if it's cracked at all. If it is, it's on this one. Right, I got excited for a second. I thought that we had a non-cracked engine. It hasn't actually gone in the common place. It's absolutely fine there. You've got one ever so slightly, I don't know if you can see it, ever so slightly starting there. So this engine wouldn't last long anyway. But then I noticed one there, which is an odd place to get one, but it's there. So, and what I mean by the pistons, I don't know if you can see this, but it's kind of hard to get. But there's a considerable gap there, and I imagine if I turn this engine over to get the piston at the top, and see that, you can see the piston ring, that silver shiny bit down there is piston ring. There's a considerable gap there. I'm wondering if that's there's a little bit of movement. I'm gonna have to check the tolerance, but either way, I have to decide what route we're going with this bike in terms of conversion or realign this engine. Yeah, so that's going to be pretty much it for this episode. This is the first episode. We're going to dive into this a little bit on the next one. I think we're going to start getting a few bits stripped off of it. I've been requested to do sort of a kind of episode or two on the wiring, and this does need the wiring touching up and looking at and stuff like that, so I think I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's next episode. So if you enjoy what you see today, please like and subscribe and all that stuff. We'll decide what to do with this engine. We're more than likely going to use this head. Probably going to do a bit of porting and polishing and all that, see how that goes. It's very rough in there, casting markings and all that. Just thinking about smoothing all that off, giving it a bit of a polish up. if it goes well and successful, and we have got a flow bench at work as well for cylinder heads, so I can test it all properly, and if it turns out to be beneficial, then I might start selling them. So yeah, that could be a good bit of money, because I've got 5 cylinder heads under the bench. So yeah, on with the next episode. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.